Day Sacramento.
If you are a commuter in the Sacramento, Stockton, Modesto area, you are undoubtedly familiar with a little station on the radio called KFBK. And if you are, you certainly are familiar with the voice of a gentleman by the name of Dean Adrakis. He a reporter for many years with KFBK, a reporter who I used to listen to, and somebody who professionally I've admired very much. But it wasn't until I met him and developed a relationship with he and his wife personally that I was really impressed. And that's because Dean is fighting for his life. He's fighting a battle with amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. It's a fancy name for a disease called ALS. It may be more easy to understand it if you think about what happened to Lou Gehrig and the disease that was named after him. Lou Gehrig's disease is devastating to those who suffer from it, who have to battle it. The story you're about to see is one that Dean Adrakis battles each and every day of his life. Take a look at this. We first learned of his story last year.
Family support is crucial in coping with ALS. My wife, Catherine's been a trooper.
What if it were you? What if your husband got this? What if you got this? What would your husband do? You know, you do what you can do.
His job was to tell the stories of others. But now the story Dean Adrakis is telling is his own. The story of his battle with Lou Gehrig's disease.
ALS has hit home here at KFBK. Reporter Dean Adrakis was diagnosed with the disease late last year.
I was diagnosed with a form of motor neuron disease that lays waste to its victims within 2 to 5 years.
Dean Adrakis, 1 year older, one more year of having to battle Lou Gehrig's disease. It's been a year filled with the greatest of challenges.
Overall, it's gotten weaker. Breathing has become more of a concern. We're making sure that the food he eats is go through a food processor, so he doesn't have any issues with choking.
And it's not only the physical challenges that Dean and Catherine have to battle.
Financial, yeah.
But Dean's fight hasn't been without some help. MDA and some new computer equipment have made a big difference.
It's a fantastic computer, and it's already set up to have software that serves to speak for him. So he's able to type a word or hit a word, and it'll actually, the computer will speak it for him.
Let's study.
In this case, the hardware, allowing Dean a level of communication that he's been missing for some time.
Considering Dean can't use his hands to type, he has something called a seeing eye. It's called the natural point, and he wears a little metal dot on his nose, so he's able to go online and check his email.
It's now a life for Dean and Catherine that bears little resemblance to the way that they lived just a few years ago. It's the simple things that they say they miss the most.
When I see a commercial, you wanna, where they're eating a hamburger and biking and running, also playing basketball. But I think the main thing that Dean misses is talking. Believe it or not, in our family, I'm the quiet one.
But the future for Dean is still uncertain. The disease will certainly progress, the couple relying on their faith and on the belief that the work that MDA is doing now will someday find a cure for ALS.
I realize how challenging it is for a family to deal with the day-to-day of having someone disabled.
And while Dean's voice may be silent today, there are some things that are hardly silent when you think about Dean. One of those is his passion. The other is his desire to help continue to battle this particular disease. We're going to spend some time with Catherine and Dean coming up in just a little bit. We saw the story just moments ago of Dean Adrakis, a reporter with KFBK Television. He joins us now with his wife, Catherine. And let me first thank you both for coming in today. I know that, yeah, it's always good to see you guys. And Dean, go Vikings. We're going to talk about them in a second. A huge Minnesota Viking fan. Catherine, let's start with you. This last year, been a year of some changes, primarily with Dean's ability to communicate.
His muscles have gotten weaker around his neck, so he's having a harder time talking. I can understand him most of the time, and so can his sisters. But it's gotten to be a concern, so we were grateful when we received the computer, which Dean could use to speak for him, basically.
And he's, you were telling me earlier, still gets on the net every day.
Sure,
and
checks his email and
checks your email.
Checks the Viking website, and you know.
These devices, these communicative devices, are incredibly expensive that do allow patients with ALS to be able to offer some level of communication. The MDA office locally helping to provide up to $2,000 for the purchase of that equipment.
And handle the whole thing, you know, without us even having to worry about it. I just made one phone call and they took care of the whole process. So.
Tremendous. And when we talk about some of the funds that we're trying to raise today, that's really what the point we're trying to make is that the money that you're pledging doesn't go to some faraway place. It goes to Fair Oaks, California, and where you guys are, and maybe to Vacaville or Vallejo or Fairfield, Stockton. These are where the patients are that we're really trying to reach. Dean diagnosed in 1999. As we saw in the story, he spoke at length about his disease while still on the air at KFBK.
Right. He worked for about 3 months after being diagnosed, then his voice just became too weak and he couldn't be on the radio any longer. So, but he's able to speak as long as he could, and he is such a communicator. That was the one thing that it was really hard for him to give up. So having the computer, you know, with help of MDA, has really made him be able to bridge the gap. So.
Yeah, I mean, I said it earlier, and I wasn't joking. I mean, when I got assigned the story to tell Dean's story, now it was so odd because Dean was the storyteller and somebody that I had listened to for so many years. The doctors now are, you know, they're optimistic to the extent that they can be.
Well, there's more research being done on ALS right now than there ever has been before, and MDA actually is doing a study where they're trying to devise which drugs may serve as an ALS cocktail to help slow and maybe stop the symptoms. So we're really encouraged with all the research MDA is doing and are keeping our eye on what they decide may work for ALS. So our hope is to have ALS not be fatal.
Absolutely. Yeah. And when you look at the Muscular Dystrophy Association, they are one of the absolute leaders in this area in finding a cure, not only for the diseases that you know, tend to strike the very young, but victims of ALS as well. And these are diseases that you contract as an adult and primarily, like we said, in the prime of your life.
Yeah. For no reason. He didn't do anything. He was a power lifter before. He was a bodybuilder. He was a biker. He was a runner. And it just happened. It just happens to 90% of the people who get it.
Right.
So we want it.
Lou Gehrig. I mean, that's really where a lot of us became familiar with ALS.
Right. I mean, it's 2003. I don't think there should be a fatal disease, and this is still a fatal disease, and it shouldn't be. So our hope is that MDA will come up with the research and the study and the drug combinations that will work to stop the progression.
I couldn't agree with you more. So. And with that, we ask you to help make a difference. As you heard Catherine say, there's never been a better time, and we've never been closer to finding a way to battle this disease, and we only do it with research, and that research comes with a price. It's $62 a minute, which is why we're going to toss it over to Nick to see if we can't do a little better and raise some money. Oh, by the way, Dean, I don't think the Vikings have a chance, but that's a different story.
That's just hurtful.
Yeah. Come on.
Maybe a 500 season, yeah.
I think the Giants take it in the playoffs.
Well, Dean said the Vikings are flying under the radar.
He's just teasing you, Dean. Doug's a good chop buster.
All right, we're going to talk to you guys a little bit more in a couple of seconds. First, though, we need to get the phones ringing. What we do.
Family support is crucial in coping with ALS. My wife, Catherine's been a trooper.
What if it were you? What if your husband got this? What if you got this? What would your husband do? You know, you do what you can do.
His job was to tell the stories of others. But now the story Dean Idractis is telling is his own. The story of his battle with Lou Gehrig's disease.
ALS has hit home here at KFBK. Reporter Dean Idractis was diagnosed with the disease late last year.
I was diagnosed with a form of motor neuron disease that lays waste to its victims within 2 to 5 years.
For years, Dean's voice was all over the airwaves, reporting all the big stories for KFBK, scoring all the big interviews. But one day, Dean's voice began to waver.
He couldn't seem to catch his breath, and he couldn't seem to swallow. And our anchor at the time said, "Do we need to take a break?" on the air. And I was just glued to the radio, and I was listening, and Dean said, yeah, that would be good.
That event, a pivotal moment for Dean, his disease now impacting his career, something that he held incredible passion for.
He was so excited about the news. I mean, he was such a go-getter. And we get up at 3:15 in the morning and we're at the office at 4 a.m. It's an ungodly hour.
At just 37, Dean's disease is already progressing. His speech mostly affected. His wife, Catherine, does the interpreting. But Dean's mind is as sharp as ever.
I feel that meant to them a lot stronger now than I ever was when you were healthy, when I was healthy.
But despite his gift of intellect, his body is now what poses the biggest challenge. Simple tasks aren't so simple anymore. But Dean and Catherine say they have nothing but hope.
Dean and I have great faith. And whenever I get frustrated, he always tells me, be patient. And whenever he gets frustrated, I always say, have faith. So we always, go back with the patience and faith.
Dean now spends a lot of time trying to educate himself and others about ALS. It's a generosity that amazes his friends.
It blew me away how somebody who had just heard the news that he had heard could be so positive and could turn this into such an opportunity, as he phrased it, as I recall, to do something really, really good.
Still, no one hears anything but realistic. They understand what Dean's diagnosis may mean.
Dean was 35, and you think, oh, he's got mono, or maybe he has, Epstein-Barr or something like that, where you complain he was tired all the time. So you think it's going to be something that is devastating, but certainly not something that could be deadly.
We still talk about how to pay the bills, and we still talk about what movies to rent, and we still talk about going on vacations, and we don't let it, be the center of our lives.
The life of a storyteller, now changed forever. It's now all about fighting the greatest battle he'll ever face, and the ammunition he's using is optimism.
When we overcome this, the life ahead of us is going to be wonderful, because I know I'll never take anything for granted ever again.